What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the Dose Media Network. If you're new here, my name is Joey, and what I will be doing in this video is breaking down the best cash game plays for week 2 on NFL Draftkings. If you are new here, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you never miss a video. If you're watching this on Saturday, we will be doing our Saturday night live stream at 10 o'clock tonight, so make sure you tune in. We will answer any and every questions about the NFL Week 2 DFS slate on DraftKings. You can ask us redraft questions as well, start sits, or any other questions you might have. So make sure you tune into that. But nonetheless, let's dive into the Week 2 cash pool on DraftKings this week. All right, so Week 2 isn't the greatest week in terms of NFL matchups. There's only one game that has a total above 50, and that is the Cardinals Raiders game. Every other game looks to be mildly disappointing, in my opinion. And I think the chalkiest quarterback in cash games this week is going to be Derek Carr at 6,200. As you could see last week, Derek Carr threw the ball 37 times in a negative game script, was 5 yards away from hitting the bonus. And I think Derek Carr is really just going to be the chalkiest quarterback on the slate because of the game environment he's in. I mentioned that this game has the highest total. The Raiders have one of the highest implied team totals on the slate at 28.5. And if we're expecting the Raiders to hit that implied team total, Derek Carr is most likely having a very good game. So at 6,200, I don't think you can go wrong with Derek Carr this week. Obviously, I prefer to play rushing quarterbacks, and the next quarterback that I'm going to talk about, who I talked about last week, is definitely in consideration as well. But I think Derek Carr is the safest cash game option with no real spend up quarterback options this week on a week where the salary is a little bit tighter than week 1. So if you want, you can play Derek Carr. He'll probably get you 18 to 22 points, and you can't go wrong with that at a 6,200 quarterback. Next quarterback that I want to talk about is Trey Lance at 5,700. Obviously, last week was a disappointing week, to say the least, for Trey Lance. Only 11 fantasy points, but 13 rushing attempts for 54 yards is definitely encouraging, and we want that floor out of our cash game quarterbacks. And I'm willing to give Trey Lance a mulligan for last week. They played in Chicago. It was pretty much a monsoon, as we all know, and I just am not putting too much stock into that game. And he gets a good spot here at home against a mildly, average Seahawks defense. So Trey Lance and his rushing upside at 5,700, I think he is going to be one of the most popular cash game quarterback options on this slate. And personally, I am willing to pay down to Trey Lance at 5,700. I will take the $500 in savings going from Derek Carr to Trey Lance. You get equally as good of a matchup. You get equally as good of a floor, in my opinion, in Trey Lance. You're saving a little bit of money on week where that 500 might allow you to get somebody better in your lineup, quite frankly, whether that be a running back or a wide receiver. So I'm personally willing to take a shot on Trey Lance this week. I mean, this is still a quarterback we were drafting in the 7th round of best ball, and I'm not, looking too much into a week 1 game where they played in a monsoon. But nonetheless, the cash game quarterbacks, in my opinion, this week are relatively slim. I think it is Derek Carr, Trey Lance. As you can see here, they are projected to be the highest owned quarterbacks on the slate, and I think rightfully so, just for all of the reasons that I mentioned. And I think the main reason is the salary is pretty tight this week, in my opinion, with no clear values. So you're going to want to spend down at quarterback, and hopefully you'll get, 18 to 22, 23 points out of one of these guys. And, you should be good to go from there. At the running back position, I think it's pretty interesting. As you can see here, they priced up JT to 9,900. I think pricing a player that high, where he's using a fifth of your DraftKings salary, is pretty bad in cash. That's just a lot of salary expectation that you're going to need him to hit. You're going to need him to score 25 to 30 DraftKings points in this spot. And obviously, it's Jonathan Taylor. He's the best running back in the NFL, in my opinion, and he can easily do that. And he should in this matchup against Jacksonville. But it's still a lot to ask, and you're still using up a ton of your salary to play JT. So I personally will not be going there, but obviously you can't fault anybody for playing Jonathan Taylor in cash. I think the best running back play on the board at the top of the pool is Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to be chalk once again. And, I touched on this last week, but he's just one of the only bell cows left in the NFL. He's going to get a ton of work on the ground. He's going to get a ton of work in the passing game. And, there's been some research and some analysis done by people way smarter than me. And, when your running back is getting 20 to 25 touches and six and 6+ of those touches are coming in the receiving game, they're pretty much a lock to score 25 plus DraftKings points. And at 7,300, I think it's a good spot at home as a favorite against this Panthers team. Saquon Barkley with no running back depth behind him to speak of. And he looked, frankly, like he returned to 2019 Saquon Barkley, if anybody watched that game. So at 7,300, you're getting a 20-touch floor, you're getting a pass-catching floor, and you're getting upside from one of the best running backs in the NFL when healthy. And, he showed that he regained his explosiveness last week. So I love Saquon Barkley this week. He's going to be the highest owned running back on the slate, and it's probably bad if you don't have him in your cash game lineup. I think if we take a look down here at the mid-range of running backs, I think the standout running back in my opinion this week is Darrell Henderson. As you could see here, he had 18 opportunities last week against the Bills in the season opener, only put up 12 points, so mildly disappointing. But what was the most interesting part from that game was how the Rams used their running backs. Darrell Henderson had 18 touches to Cam Akers 3. Cam Akers had 0 points on 0 yards, and it just looks to be Darrell Henderson's backfield. And at 5,700, he's going to project as one of the best plays on the entire slate at any position. And it's probably bad process if you don't play Darrell Henderson this week in cash. The matchup is there. The game script is there. The Rams are 10+ point favorites at home against the Falcons. And he obviously has pass catching upside as well. As you can see here, he is their preferred pass down back. I think that, maybe this Rams offense gets a little funky and they do try and establish Cam Akers a little bit this week in a plus matchup. And, maybe he does see a little bit more work. But based on week one, if we're just strictly looking at week one, it's hard to not play Darrell Henderson. It's hard to believe that Cam Akers is actually back from that Achilles tear. I mean, it sucks to say, but Cam Akers just doesn't look like the same running back. Granted, it's been a limited sample size. I don't think he's the same player, unfortunately, and that means Darrell Henderson is the guy in this backfield. And at 5,700, you pretty much have to play him and Saquon in cash if you want to be playing optimally, in my opinion. All right, some other running backs you can consider for cash. I think this could be a 3 running back cash week just with some of, the wide receivers that we don't have on the slate. And I think Leonard Fournette is definitely a standout play at 6,700. I think he's just relatively underpriced for his role in this Bucs offense. As you can see here, 23 touches in week one in that beautiful game script against the Cowboys, went over 100 yards rushing. Obviously, 2 catches on 2 targets is pretty disappointing for a player that we thought was going to be more utilized in the passing game. But it also kind of looked like the Bucs took it a little bit easy. They weren't pushing the ball. They weren't trying to score a ton of points. In my opinion, it just looked like they were just trying to get in and get out of that game with no ease. And obviously, they did, winning 19-3. But nonetheless, this is still a player who's going to project to play pretty much every single snap. He's going to see a ton of work. He has the goal line role. He has the pass catching role. And at 6,700, that is just super valuable. So you could definitely play Leonard Fournette as your RB3. I think that's fine. Saquon Barkley, I do prefer, but Leonard Fournette is still a great play this week, and he's definitely in cash game consideration. I think another player you can consider is definitely Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams saw 18 touches last week, 11 of those coming in the passing game, as we could see here, for 20 DraftKings points. And obviously 12 targets is an outlier game for Javonte Williams, but Javonte Williams looked so good. He looked so explosive. He's just the better running back in that Denver backfield compared to Melvin Gordon. And obviously he has the pass game role. And at 6,500, I think that he's going to project as one of the best plays on the board. I think that Javonte Williams is a very talented running back, and the game script should be there. The Broncos, are 10+ point favorites at home against Houston. This is a prime bounce back spot after, a letdown loss in Seattle. I think Russ is going to come out firing. I think this Broncos offense in general is going to come out firing, and Javonte Williams is going to be one of the highest owned players on the slate, and rightfully so. He's just a very good running back, but I definitely do prefer Saquon, Darrell Henderson, and Leonard Fournette to Javonte. So it's going to be interesting to see where his ownership ends up at, but I'm probably off Javonte in cash, but I just had to mention him in terms of the cash pool. If you want to go there, I think it's fine. Some other players you can consider, DeAndre Swift at 7K if he's healthy, and it looks like he may not go as I'm recording, but we'll have to wait and see about that. Tune into the Saturday night live stream. Joe Mixon is 7,200. He should be kind of chalky. I think people will play him. He had the second most touches in the NFL last week at 34. Just a crazy pass game. I think that was just boosted with T. Higgins out, but Joe Mixon nonetheless is in cash game consideration. So to sum it up, I think you're choosing 2 or 3 out of Saquon Barkley, Darrell Henderson, Leonard Fournette, Javonte Williams, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift is where I would cut the cash pool for running back. All right, moving on to wide receiver. I think the standout option at the top of the pool is definitely Davante Adams. Davante Adams had a 46% target share in week 1, 17 targets from Derek Carr. And if Derek Carr is chalk in cash, it only makes sense to pair him with one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and Davante Adams. And Derek Carr was just locked in onto Davante, as we saw last week. And for all the reasons that Derek Carr is going to be the chalkiest quarterback, you could say the same for Davante Adams. The game is the best on the slate just in terms of the total. The Raiders have the highest implied team total. They should pass at one of the highest rates in the league under Josh McDaniels for the entire season, and this has shootout potential, one of the only games that does. So Davante Adams, you're getting one of the most talented wide receivers in the league with a probably 30+% target share on the season when it's all said and done. So I think he is a phenomenal play this week, and you can't go wrong playing Davante Adams. I do think he is a better play than Cooper Kupp, kind of for the same reasons with JT. I think they kind of priced Cooper Kupp out of cash game consideration, although you can see right here he is projecting for decent ownership at 9,900. I personally just believe that it's hard to get there in cash. If you want, you can punt multiple positions and just jam in Kupp and Davante Adams and probably sail to the money. But I think that's just bad process when you can get players cheaper than Cooper Kupp, 2K, 3K, even cheaper with similar target shares. Obviously, upside just in terms of player, maybe not, but target share, yes, you can. One of those guys is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he is going to be decently owned. Amon-Ra St. Brown came out of that week 1 game with a 32% target share, which was top 6 in the NFL in week 1. Jared Goff is locked in on Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've seen it at the end of the 2021 season. It continued into this season. This Lions-Washington game is one of the highest totaled games on the slate. The total has risen by over 4 points as it currently stands, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to eat. I think he is just a very safe option at 6,500. He's projecting really well, and if this game does turn into a shootout in Detroit, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be a key factor, and then obviously he gets boosted a ton if DeAndre Swift is out, so that's definitely news worth monitoring, is whether or not DeAndre Swift will be out in week 2, but nonetheless, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a good play. Some guys in the mid-range that I like, I definitely think Brandon Cooks is in play at 6K. You're just getting a very, very good target share. out of Brandon Cooks. I think Christian Kirk is definitely in play at 5,700. Trevor Lawrence just locked in on Christian Kirk in week 1, as you can see here. 12 targets for Christian Kirk for a 29% target share. This could be a game where the Jags are losing at home to the Colts, and nonetheless, Christian Kirk is going to be a target monster in this offense. So at 5,700, he's projecting relatively well as it stands right now. And then I think the next guy that you can consider in this mid-range is Jerry Jeudy at 5,600. Jerry Jeudy finished with 102 yards, as you could see on the screen right here. And I think that this is just a beautiful bounce back spot for the entire Denver offense. Like I mentioned with JAVONTE, 10 plus point favorites. You have Russell Wilson coming off, that brutal loss to Seattle in week 1. And I think the Broncos are just going to make it an effort to just ultimately steamroll the Texans in the spot and, get and make up for the coaching blunders that they had specifically at the end of the game. And Jerry Jeudy obviously broke that long touchdown in week 1, 67 yards, and he looks to be back from the injury that hampered him in 2021. So I think Jerry Jeudy and Christian Kirk are the standout plays in the mid-range for sure. And then I think the pay down option that people are just going to gravitate towards, I don't necessarily buy into it, but it's Greg Dortch at 3,500. As you can see here, Greg Dortch, what a name. 3,500. Greg Dortch had 9 targets last week. Greg Dortch had a 24% target share. He ran like the most routes on the Cardinals team, and I think people are just gravitating towards him because he is projecting well, especially if Rondale Moore is out once again. He should be an every down wide receiver for the Cardinals, and I've said it way too many times, but for the same reasons with Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, in terms of the game, I think that he's okay. I don't want to buy into this Greg Dortch narrative. I think that week 1 was just kind of a fluke. I think that he got a lot of his targets when the game was already out of hand. I think that this game could just flow through Hollywood and James Conner. I don't really want to buy into it, but you do need a pay down option, especially if you want to jam in some of the top guys like Kupp, Devontae Adams, SAQUON, CMC, JT, or whomever. And this is who people are going to gravitate towards. So just had to mention it. I don't really like it, but it could work out. It worked out with Dotson last week, and I was off Dotson. I take that L, but nonetheless, Dotson scored 2 touchdowns on 3 catches. So kind of ran bad there just in terms of touchdown variance. But nonetheless, I don't necessarily like Dortch, but you do need a pay down option in week 2. But other than that, just to sum it up, I think your wide receiver cash pool should just consist mainly of Devontae Adams, Christian Kirk, Jerry Jeudy, Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Greg Dortch I can include in there. And that's pretty much the wide receivers that I would choose from in this week. All right, moving on to tight end. I think there is a punt option at tight end this week, and it's Juwan Johnson. He had 5 targets last week, only 2 catches for 43 yards. But he played the most snaps out of any Saints tight end. He ran the most routes out of any Saints tight end. Obviously, they kind of got game scripted into that, being down 2+ possessions to the Falcons last week. But this is a game in the Saints and Bucks where, it definitely could turn into a shootout. Obviously, the Saints have the Bucks number, and they have had their number in the era of Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. So maybe they do dominate this game once again, but this game could potentially turn into a shootout. And at 2,500, I'm always willing to punt the tight end position. If he gets you 7 to 8 points, I think that is a massive W on a slate where, the top options are really only Mark Andrews and Darren Waller. Granted, Mark Andrews is only 6,400. And last week, I kind of got burned by not playing Kelsey at 6,600. And just in terms of the dynamics of the slate, when you're getting, a player with Mark Andrews' floor and ceiling at 6,400, it does seem bad to not play him, especially when you look at his projections. He's projected as the best value at tight end. He's projected to be one of the highest owned. He's projecting to just outscore the field by more than 3 plus DraftKings points right now. So I think that I would consider playing Mark Andrews this week. Obviously, you would have to find some salary relief if you do at the wide receiver position with Greg Dortch, or at the running back position, and obviously defense is a salary saver as well. But I think you can consider Mark Andrews. He's definitely in the player pool. And then the only other player that I would consider is Albert O at 3,700. As you could see here, 6 targets last week, 8.3 points. At 3.7K, I think it's fine. He's projecting pretty okay right now, and you could definitely go there in cash. And my tight end cash pool is definitely only those 3 guys. Mark Andrews at the top, Albert O at the mid range. I consider 37 to like 45 the mid range, and Juwan Johnson is the punt tight end. So whichever tight end you run out of those 3, I think it's fine. It just depends largely on the build that you're running with your other players. But in terms of cash, those are the 3 guys that you should be playing. But that is going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know I've been talking for 20 plus minutes now about cash games, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below. Ask us any questions. We will respond about cash game strategy, GPP strategy. Make sure you check out Ben's video, which dropped yesterday. Make sure you join the Dose Media Network Discord, which is linked down below in the description. And as I mentioned at the top, Saturday night live stream today at 10 o'clock. If you stuck to the end, shout out to you. Shout out to you watching. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next week.